Evaluation question 1. In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? Firstly, I will be discussing how our media piece conforms to the conventions of the action-adventure / spy genre which we were aiming for. The first two typical conventions of a spy movie is to have some form of espionage combined with protagonists and antagonists, although the line between protagonist and antagonist is not always clear-cut. Throughout the opening of our scene, we learn relatively little about our characters other than the fact that they appear to both be from relatively shady backgrounds, conforming to this grey area between protagonist and antagonist, much like the opening sequence of Casino Royale. This character's entrance from the shadows also conforms to the espionage style of spy movies. Another element of our media production that is taken as a convention from the spy genre is to have a mystery object, in our case a briefcase. The content's unknown to the audience, but you can make clear that it will be a big plot point to the movie, as it warranted killing off a character to attain the briefcase. This would often be seen in movies like James Bond, where a briefcase may be containing launch codes, explosives, or high valuable objects. How our two main characters are dressed also conforms to the spy conventions. We have one character who is in a business attire, looking smart, suave, sophisticated, but at the same time villainous. We also have our killer, who is wearing latex glove and minimalist clothing, representing the classic hitman. There are also a couple of other areas of the mise-en-scène that we feel conforms to the typical spy genre, and also to the, in some cases, to the action-adventure genre. We have the initial opening shot with the sleek new business car. We also have the knife, which is obviously typical of spy movies because it's a typical weapon used to silently dispose of enemies, but it also fits the action-adventure genre because it is a weapon. We also think that the slick back hair of our main character who dies is a sort of sign of maturity as a character, and that conforms to the spy genre, as the characters are often mature, smart and sophisticated. Evidence of this is characters such as George Smiley, played by Gary Oldman in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, who was a quiet, reserved, calm character with slick back hair, and he always kept himself calm, composed, and one step ahead of the game. The other reason that we say our costumes conform is because they are modelled partially on films such as James Bond and the Bourne series. James Bond would often be pictured wearing a sort of suit or high-class clothing, whereas Jason Bourne goes for the more minimalistic outfits, such as our hitman. Also within the mise-en-scène, we felt that the locking of the door latch showed the insecurity of the character and conformed to the spy conventions of insecurity, worry, and also of protection. We feel that our camera work conforms to the spy genre because it starts off with an establishing shot, which most spy movies often would open up with. You see this in the introduction to Casino Royale, that establishes the office setting as well as the character that is important to the plot, which is similar to what you see in As. The composition of the opening shots establishes exactly where we are and shows us this shady, mysterious character that is relevant to we also feel that the shot variations that we use, such as close-ups to signify important objects, as well as the tracking shots and various pan shots that we use, are seen quite often in the spy movie that tries to create quite a sort of suave element with its camera work. In respects to editing, we feel that our transitions are relatively standard to not only our genre, but to general Hollywood blockbusters. The straight cut is generally something that is just used across the board, unless intended for a specific purpose, like the wipes in certain films like Star Wars that are to signify big scene changes. So we generally just use straight cuts to emphasise points. Everything in our piece happens in the correct order of narrative as well, which is generally consistent amongst our genre, with the occasional flashback, but that doesn't happen in ours. We also feel that the pace is relatively conformative for the introduction to a spy film. There is a sort of lull in pace, and then a quick escalation. Again, this is modelled on quite a few films that we've watched, where there will be a very slow, intricate build-up, followed by a rapid escalation, much like our scene. Ways in which it is not conformative. As a group, we feel that the biggest way that our piece is non-conformative to the spy genre is with the quick escalation of violence and the graphic violence that we use. The reason that we feel that this is non-conformative is because spy movies are generally aimed at a 12A, occasionally to a 15. You get films at 15 that are more substance-based to a 15, not actually violence-based to a 15, like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Generally, these films are aimed at a 12A audience, like many of the James Bond films and some of the Bourne movies. That's why our use of strong violence is reasonably non-conformative. But we actually took inspiration here from a different style of movie, which was actually Drive, which incorporates graphic violence with suave, sophisticated filming, and that is why we tried to push our conventions towards a slightly different style of genre, and actually to adapt and develop these conventions into a more Drive-styled spy movie. The use of slow motion was also non-conformative in the spy genre. They often seem to try to keep to a sort of real-world style of editing, with a straightforward, straight-cut transitions and a relatively straightforward order of narrative. Therefore, our use of slow motion is very non-conformative to that.